Hello, my name is Haley Ray Denal Atkinson, and my pronouns are she, her. I identify as a biracial, mixed black and white, able cisgender woman, and I'm an accessibility specialist working with Human Space, an inclusive design consultancy of BDP's Toronto studio. Welcome to the second BDP podcast series called Design for Inclusion. The BDP podcast highlights and debates the biggest challenges facing designers today. From designing for a more inclusive world, each episode welcomes international experts from architecture, engineering, and urbanism professions to discuss prominent issues in the industry. The BDP podcast aims to use inclusive language. However, some terminology for inclusion may vary across different cultures and regions. In this series, we discuss topics related to designing for a more inclusive world, from exploring gender equity through our buildings and public spaces, to design that reflects race, color, and culture in the built environment, and how to design a hybrid and inclusive workplace. Why build barriers to accessibility when you can design for inclusion? Welcome to the conversation. Hello, and welcome to the Design for Inclusion podcast, where this week we're exploring how to design an inclusive and hybrid workplace. We'll discuss how hybrid workplaces can be designed more inclusively for in-person experiences. We'll share solutions that promote equity, well-being, and participation throughout the built environment of workplaces. As always, we welcome the range of perspectives of our panel. Joining me for our conversation today is Julie Smersky, Associate Design Director from BDP's Toronto studio.
Hey there.
Steph Calder, Senior Interior Designer from BDP's Bristol studio.
Hello.
And Irini Theodoru, Interior Designer from BDP's London studio.
Hello.
Welcome to you all. Now, before we dive into the discussion today, let's acknowledge the privilege that we have as knowledge workers to work within and have the opportunity to rethink and design inclusive and hybrid workplaces. Conversations related to hybrid work often focus on flexibility, productivity, communication, technology, or organizational policies. Let's refocus this topic and think about it within the context of the built environment. While an organization may support hybrid work and consideration for work from home or other remote workplaces are important, let's explore how our existing in-person workplaces may not actually be resilient to our new ways of working in the ways that we need them to be. How can we design inclusive in-person experiences at workplaces?
I'll take that one. So I think workplaces really, as we've, have moving out of the pandemic, we really need workplaces that provide something that our home environments don't provide. And in doing so, thinking about what settings or what things people may need within the workplace. Why are people coming back to our offices? And that could be anything from, you look at the people at different stages of their lives. You may have some people living at home with, sort of flat sharing or house sharing with people, and they want to come to work in sort of quieter spaces. You may have people at home who've lived alone during the pandemic and want to come back for social reasons to socialize with people. And it's really providing the variety of and diversity of settings that people can use when they return to the studios. And I think that applies almost across the board. So for anyone coming to an office who, we talk about neurodiversity or anything really, you want a workspace that has lots of different opportunities and options for people.
So I guess, how do you create a great employee experience, right? And we're talking about, Steph mentioned bringing people back in, bringing staff back in, and we want to make it great. So what do we need? We need, technology. What are all the new emerging technologies, and how do we support the people, our staff, when they go throughout their day? Obviously, the physical environment, we need to think of it holistically, providing, at this point, inspirational destinations that strengthen our connection, strengthen our learning, support innovation, of course. And of course, we need to think about people and their sustained well-being. So not just their physical, but how well can they work when they come into the office? And, what are their motivational levels? So you mentioned talking about, a project that we've worked on. So at BDP Quadrangle, been really fortunate to have the opportunity to recently redesign our new studio at the Well in downtown Toronto in Canada. And we changed the way we ourselves want to experience the workplace. So we started our process of thinking about moving in 2019. And of course, in early 2020, thanks to the pandemic, we had to have a big pause and a reset. And we really stepped back and reassessed our needs and our wants as a studio. So we designed our new studio space after extensive listening, observing, surveying. We did focus groups, we did interviews, and we even put together like a testing zone within our current space to try out some of these concepts that we wanted to bring to the new workplace. And so the physical model for our space is one of neighborhoods. And, the term neighborhoods has been communicated and tossed around quite a bit in the design design industry, I should say. But for our studio, our neighborhoods, how we've designed them is we have a kit of parts that allows each studio member to choose which neighborhood they want to work in. They're not dedicated to one specific zone in our workplace. They can float around and they'll have access to the same type of technology, ergonomic seating, collaboration spaces, closed open meeting rooms in each sort of corner or pocket of our studio. And they have the flexibility to work where they want and to have that autonomy of space. So not to keep babbling on about our own studio, but we essentially moved from an open office concept to an agile office and then to a distributed workforce. And so our staff have the flexibility right now and in future to work from home, work in the studio, work from a third place. But we're really designing this new studio space to touch on all of those tactile, in-person experiences that we're all after. So collaboration, focus, and also we create spaces to have that reprieve. So when you're done collaborating, when you're done focusing, you want to rest and relax. We've created those spaces as well. So it's a really exciting time for us. And, our new studio space is almost ready. So I know that Haley Ray, you may be touching on that as well, but it should be a very exciting time for us. And, we talk a lot about everyone has opinions on how hybrid work and the new workplace should work. And we now have this experience that we'll be able to tap into and talk about our lessons learned. And we have this great body of knowledge and research that we can always go back and share with our clients and colleagues.
You mentioned about, engaging with employees and surveys and focus groups and testing things out. And I think that's so important in every project that we work on. You really get to the root of what, a client is looking for, but also the workforce is looking for. It can really help to inform the design of the space.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think it's something that as designers, don't always have the luxury of time to do the research necessary and to really understand the needs of our clients and our end users before we actually embark in the design process. So, yeah, I believe research, and especially, first degree research of actually talking to people and trying out spaces, like creating prototypes, is extremely important on getting the design just right and completely like covering the needs of the users.
I think I can certainly echo what Julie shared with us, and having both been a part of those consultation experiences in their various forms, and having seen some sneak peeks of what that new studio looks like, the emphasis of that sense of belonging, that promotion of our safety and our security and our mobility throughout the space in an equitable way, the improvement of our health and wellness through those various spaces that are included, and just overall that sense of community and inclusivity, so that we have really meaningful reasons to return to office when it suits our particular situations.
think that's really interesting on the sort of community side of it. I think so many people have felt so much isolation around sort of the pandemic, and coming back into the office is really, yeah, it's really trying to foster that sense of community, isn't it, within our offices and spaces that support that and facilitate that.
Yeah, I think that's something we're seeing more and more, even with some of our current projects. That one, it's employers are finding it difficult to entice employees to come back to the office. But one of the ways of doing it is by the social aspect. So it's not about just providing, a desk and a computer for a person. It's about creating those spaces that people can actually meet, they can socialize, they can, bounce ideas and do that, in a more humane way than just through Teams or through, or virtual meetings. And and I can see a lot more offices trying to move into this kind of work way almost. So you're going to the office, not necessarily to do like your focus work, but you go there to meet other people and bounce ideas, and it's about connecting with other people.
The workplace should be the best place to get your work done. We all know that we can work from anywhere: coffee shop, your bedroom, your office, the kitchen table. We've all probably worked at many different places, but creating, an amazing experience, a hybrid workplace where we want people to want to come in, and that's because of the social aspect, because access to colleagues. We want our workplaces to have the best technology. We don't, no more dropped Teams or Zoom calls. We want that connection to culture, learning opportunities, mentorship, so many things. I find myself chatting with my colleagues and saying how unfortunate the pandemic has been for some of our junior studio members. They're not getting that experience. They're not getting that in-person osmosis learning when we're all working together and troubleshooting together and celebrating successes together and sharing in sorrows together, and stresses. And it's, creating that workplace hub, or that just the place that you want to be. Like, we know you can work from home, doing emails all day, but it's really, again, getting us back to the social aspect and creating that deep-seated culture that I think we're all after. We spend so much time with our colleagues at work. We really want to enjoy that experience.
I think the point about technology is a really interesting one, because it kind of comes back to, as we move into a hybrid world where we may have some people in the office and some people working from home, and how do we make sure that we're not that the people who are working from home are still included, and setting up. We talk about like design of workspaces, but having office spaces where you can have Teams meetings with other people and without detracting from the rest of the office. So things like acoustics and being able to maybe not sit directly next to somebody who's trying to do focused working, for example, like reading reports, and have you next to them having a conversation with 5 or 6 people. It's sort of designing spaces around this hybrid world where you have a mix of people in studio and a mix of people from home, and yeah, having spaces that support that, because we've kind of all gone from working in the office to all working from home as a very generalization, and now we've kind of got this split. So it's, hybrid working does offer real benefits for some people in terms of childcare, or having, if you really like working from home in a sort of focused quiet space, you can create your home environment to replicate that. And it's trying to balance the two now as we move forward post pandemic. I
think you touched on something about the ability to work without distraction. So working from home during the pandemic, for some, brought on this newfound ability to focus. You could squirrel yourself away in a space and you could really dig into something. However, you touched on this, you may be sharing your home with multiple people. You may have less privacy. So, thinking about the hybrid workplace and bringing people back, we need to come up with new solutions around acoustic and visual and even psychological privacy to help people be the most productive when they do come back into the studio. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them in all those facets as well, because people, and at least I found in our design sectors, you want that collaboration. You want to collaborate. The best ideas come out of collaborative sessions. And going back to our own studio that we're designing, we've totally shaken up the way that we see our floor plan laying out. We have 1.5 times the amount of closed meeting spaces and almost upwards of 3 to 4 times the amount of meeting and collaborative areas. And we've reduced the overall desk proper footprint. So we're giving those spaces to collaborate. And of course, those collaboration and meeting zones come with a variety of privacy and acoustic solutions so that you can hop in a room or go behind a divider screen or close a curtain, and you can get the amount of privacy that you need for those types of conversations.
Did you have any new work settings that came about from the sort of post-pandemic redesign considerations? Was there anything like totally new that came out from that, or is it more of an adaptation of the previous design?
From our old studio to our new? So our old studio was an open office in a traditional sense. We had a pretty, I don't want to say rigid, but let's just say rigid schedule of we came in at 9, we left at 5:30. Everyone had their own desk. There was a good amount of space. We were always fighting for meeting rooms. So when we got the chance to do that pause and take a deep dive and look at how we work and look at what we need and look at what we're lacking, because we of course grew in size over the last few years, we totally changed the way we as an organization see ourselves working. So we moved from individual desks to, I think we were at 1-to-1 desks before, to almost 2-to-1 now. So we have half as few desks. We've created these neighborhoods, and that's new for us. So having those focused, collaborative, and restorative spaces within each of our neighborhoods gives us sort of this micro city as our workplace. So that's new for us. And also, using Microsoft Teams, that's our main platform, but we're constantly connected. That's also something different. And, it has its pros and its cons. I know that obviously I'm sure we're all feeling meeting fatigue, but it comes with a new set of challenges. We're able to connect to international studios, like what we're doing today. And I think that is growing in terms of demand for our studio staff, having access to other international studios, but also just having that quick connection and being able to digitally share. It's, I think not that we needed something of this scale to happen, but it definitely gave us a boost into into sort of the digital age of the workplace. And while we don't want to lose that analog way of working, I think, this hybrid model that we've come to now know as our new norm is definitely here to stay. And our studio has totally evolved along with that process. And the new space will just be the hub that will allow us to really push our ideas forward and sort of be the best team, that we can be in that new way of working.
I think that's great. I think what I've heard from all of you is This moment in time over the last few years has certainly been an invaluable springboard to reimagine workplaces, hybrid and inclusive workplaces at that. And though we were already, situated to start thinking about those things, our hand was forced in many ways to reimagine it in ways that maybe we hadn't foreseen when we started the process. And some of these design solutions may have been sort of one-off implementations, thinking about, for example, the idea of solve for one and extend to many, which is one of the inclusive design principles from the Microsoft Design Toolkit, just as an example of a resource there. But the idea that, many of these accommodations and ways of working that may have just been, again, one-off accommodations that were fulfilled previously are in fact incredibly useful and invaluable to all of us as members of our studios. So building on that, I think I'd like to ask, how can we design with folks with neurodiversity, be it learning, memory, developmental disability types, in ways that benefit everyone in hybrid workplaces? How can we build on that even more so, perhaps thinking about more tactical design solutions that we've seen implemented?
I think we can tie that in with Julie saying at the beginning about the amount of research they did. And it's basically understanding who your users are, what their abilities are, and then designing around that. And with a lot of research done on, and you've mentioned was in Microsoft. So Microsoft has like millions of users, but then the personas they've actually created are less than 10. And that's because you will find that most people have similar needs, and you can easily narrow them down by taking the extreme cases. So if you take, let's say, a person with the most severe mobility issues in your office, and then you take one of the more like athletic, let's say, people in your office, and also see the users that occupy the space, say, the people that have to come into the office every day, not just working hybrid, and then the person that just comes in the office like maybe once a month. If you can cater for the needs of these people, everyone else just falls in between. So I think, that should be a strategy going forward, really understanding your users and trying to meet your extreme users, basically. And then your design will just slowly come together.
I think off the back of that, you providing a design that, as you say, caters for everyone, is designed for everyone in mind, not just one individual. There's lots of different ways of looking at that, whether that's through sort of furniture, types of settings of furniture, whether you've got I don't know, cafe style tables or bar bench style table, different heights. Certainly in terms of neurodiversity, I think it's understanding that neurodiversity is just that. Just because somebody is neurodiverse doesn't mean that everybody who falls under that name has all the same needs and requirements. And so in a very simplistic way, if you look at color, for example, or pattern, creating spaces that are calming, are quiet, are relaxing, your sort of typical anti-stress type environments with greens and blues, and very sort of subtle patterns, that might cater for one particular type of environment. But there are people who respond more to, say, vibrant or energizing colors, and so it's providing that variety kind of across your design so that people can choose. They have the autonomy to pick where they want to go and work, what works best for them. And even within a day, you might be doing different tasks that require different environments. So it's having the opportunity to choose those environments that work best for you for the task it is that you are doing.
I think some of the examples that we've brought up certainly focus on these various places and arriving there, spending time there. Are there any strategies that you've seen implemented to account for the spaces that we move through, transient spaces that sort of get us from that point A to point B? And have there been any elements implemented in those areas that consider what we're speaking about today, inclusivity, and the connection to these various places and the people that we work with?
I think what we see more and more with office design is that space as a commodity is very valuable. So you try to do the most with the area you have. And so even the journey, let's say from the reception to your desk, it has to be a bit more meaningful. So you should, as you go into the office, you should have stop points that actually give something to your journey. So it is like, let's say if it's just like a blank corridor at the past, you could, have some narrow seating or like a bookcase, or create something interesting there for a person to stop. And then, if you just place seating in like a space that was there before, then you might get it's a good space for a chance meeting, because sometimes the most important decisions and conversations we have with our colleagues being in the office is not it's not in a meeting room, is those chance encounters. And I think that has to be reflected in the design of the space and of the office in order for them to occur. And that's why, every journey and space in the office needs to have a meaning to it.
It definitely does. I think I was thinking exactly that. We could use like the water cooler as an example. I don't think we pin up the water cooler as like a destination necessarily, but it's, a stop along the way to, your point B, for example. So those moments in between that hold those transient spaces as meaningful in the way that they're designed as the places that we sort of end up and then, stop and stay.
I think, and just touching on my neurodiversity, like understanding that there is no, quote unquote, right way of thinking, learning, and behaving. And also that neurodiverse people in the workplace aren't new. They can be our coworkers, our consultants, our mentors. So, shifting to a hybrid work model that it's changed the way we interact with each other and our space. And, this brings a new way of us designing for inclusivity. So, touching on giving people access to digital tools and giving them the time to test and experiment and feel comfortable using those new tools. That's something that I think is very important to making sure these hybrid spaces work. But really touching on the physical space, we definitely want to make sure that we're accommodating employees across a wide spectrum. So those folks that are highly sensitive to stimuli versus those that aren't. Some people prefer predictable settings while others thrive in, the ever-changing and collaborative landscape. So we need to provide different spaces, and maybe this, ties into like what you're seeing along your journey to your desk, and there are options for you. So, understanding that everyone has different sensory sensitivities, like just touching on sort of one aspect here, will guide the design of a workplace to give you that range of spaces, places, and escapes. So I think really, options empower people to find the right solution for their specific need. And, to touch on a few other things, we can have varied levels of acoustics, be it closed, very highly treated rooms versus more open spaces, adjustable Wi-Fi lighting, in-floor, raised access floor, HVAC, so you have your own control. It's really, it's giving people and our employees the control back, to allow them to adjust and modify the space that they want to be in, to suit their needs. And again, it's kind of going back to this I'm comfortable at home. I have all these things. You know, I have my desk fan. I have my space heater at home. I'm great. Now, how can I make this comfortable environment even better in a workplace? I need to have access to all of these things. I need to be able to modify or adjust or find these places that make me, feel comfortable.
Thanks, Julie. I think that's a great place for us to move on to our last question together. So the idea of, well-being both in our workplaces or at home. So well-being being that state of, comfort, health, happiness, including a balance between our physical, our emotional, our mental, and spiritual well-being. How can we more thoughtfully design hybrid workplaces for this well-being?
I think we've pointed to some of the solutions in this conversation. It is about, creating the variation of work settings, and we can see this more and more with our clients asking for it. It has, like, this trend actually has started in the past 10 years, maybe like Google and Google offices were the first trendsetters that went really wacky with the workplace. But you see more and more companies, trying to kind of match that type of environment. And you see clients now requesting for like 5 or even more different work settings. So from your standard desk to sit-stand desks to more focused areas, collaboration, even areas that have flexible furniture that the employees can change themselves, different variety of sizes in meeting rooms, and alternative seatings to work from. So not just your desk, but like as you would do at home, like go to a sofa and work, why not? Once you start introducing all these different elements, you can really start meeting needs of different users, no matter what their mental or physical abilities or what level of neurodiversity they're at.
Yeah, I think one of the design strategies or we could look at is also like biophilia and introducing sort of natural materials, referencing the natural world in the space, bringing the outdoors in, having planting in the office, use of timber, tactile materials, anything that references the natural world is sort of well documented to have a positive influence on mental health in particular. I think also facilities, looking at, parenting rooms or well-being rooms or faith rooms, allowing people to, facilities for people to go and use those rooms, try to sort of foster and facilitate a sense of community as well within the workspace, which we've talked about a bit previously, and then autonomy. We talked about ability to choose the place you want to work. Having control of your environment also has a huge impact on your sense of well-being and mental health as well. And I think it's bringing all of those things together into a design that responds to what a sort of employee body is looking for.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone. Julie, Steph, Arani, we greatly appreciate your time and contribution to this conversation. Thank you for sharing your experiences related to this topic. I'm so excited to visit our new studio once it's ready. I can't wait to share what we've learned today with our studio and with our collaborators moving forward. Thank you to you all, and be well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.